Hi and welcome to this 5 quick tips for improving your emotional intelligence and hopefully increasing your success in all areas of your life. This is Chaz from Chattervation.com and I'm going to be leading you through these 5 quick tips. First thing we've got to understand is what emotional intelligence is, and it is exactly what it says on this slide. Understand regulating and controlling your emotions. And studies have shown that people with a high emotional intelligence have better interpersonal, problem solving, conflict resolution and communication skills. And all of that translates to better performance in both your professional and personal lives. EI is a little bit like the emotional version of IQ. But unlike IQ, EI can be learned. So, as promised, here are 5 key areas you can improve to boost your emotional intelligence and a tip for each. The first element of emotional intelligence that we're going to talk about is self-awareness. It's one of the cornerstones of EI, and it's defined as the conscious knowledge of your own character, feelings, motives and desires. Self-aware people make better leaders and decision makers because they understand their own feelings and have a clear perception of them. Developing self-awareness is the first step in realizing and achieving what it is that you really, really want. You can train yourself to become more self-aware, and you can do that by training yourself to be mindful. When, for example, you learn how to play the guitar, you're really mindful of how you hold the instrument, how you place your fingers, the feelings of the strings when they're played, and the sound it produces. We nearly always drive mindfully. We notice how the car is running, we pay attention to the instrument panel and carefully watch what's going on in and around the car. Being mindful means doing exactly the same thing that you do when you learn guitar or drive, but doing this with your own thoughts and feelings. A good way to learn mindfulness is to practice mindfulness meditation. Mindful meditation is a type of meditation where you sit in one place and rather than meditating on a theme or an object, you simply let your mind be still and observe what it does. There are a number of different apps you could use for this. For example, there is Calm or Headspace. Both really good apps. You can have a look at them. I think you might get a 30-day trial certainly with Headspace. Ideally, what you want to do for this is just to sit in a comfortable place and quiet your mind. Don't think about anything. Instead, just focus on the physical sensations and the sounds around you. You'll find it's nearly impossible to keep your mind clear. Thoughts will arise of their own accord. And when a thought arises, acknowledge it and just let it pass. Don't become attached to it and don't let it grab hold of you. Let each thought or feeling arise and pass. This is a type of training that teaches you how to observe thoughts and emotions. These thoughts and emotions don't stir you and you don't judge them. The point of the exercise is that as you get better at meditating, you'll find yourself doing the same thing, observing and acknowledging thoughts without becoming attached to them when you're not meditating as well. As a result, you'll become better able to understand and assess your emotions without them grabbing hold of you. The second thing that we're going to talk about is active listening. It's a communication technique used in training, in conflict resolution, consulting and other situations where emotional intelligence is a key factor. It involves you as the listener repeating to the speaker what was said in order to confirm that they understood the meaning clearly. Repeating what was said also shows the speaker that you are listening. The idea is simple enough. You listen and then you repeat and confirm what the speaker said. But how can you be sure you're getting it right? If your confirmation isn't what the speaker actually said, your attempt at active listening could spiral into a frustrating misunderstanding. Also, you don't want to be telling the speaker what they're thinking or feeling. It takes practice, but the first step is to eliminate distractions and focus solely on the person speaking. You do need to make a conscious effort to focus on the speaker only. If you're in an environment where there are distractions, such as background noise, tune them out. One way to do this is to maintain eye contact with the person with whom you're speaking. Don't let your eyes wander. And if you can, don't stare. In addition to the environmental distractions, you need to get rid of the distractions inside your own head. Don't judge what the other person is saying or let your mind race to think of a response. When someone's speaking, focus only on their words and their full impact. Afterwards, you'll have time to think of a response. In fact, if you improve your self-awareness as described above, you can also use mindfulness to be more mindful of what another person says. If you really struggle with this, a top tip that you can use is to repeat in your own mind the words that the person is saying to you. You'll find that way you are really getting that understanding and you don't lose track of what they're talking about. The third thing we're going to talk about is self-regulation. Self-regulation is important to emotional intelligence because it's about two things: recognizing and understanding your emotions and controlling those emotions in an appropriate way. This is not to say that you're never going to get angry, you're never going to get wound up, but you're controlling your emotions appropriately. Emotional intelligence training allows you to control and use your emotions in the best way possible. A good simple tip you can use to regulate these emotions is to stop and refocus. It can be easy for these emotions to take control of us and make us do and say things we later regret. However, if you can distract yourself for just one moment and take yourself out of the current situation, this can be just enough to allow those emotions to cool off and lose their sting. Then you can handle the situation in a way that's calm and clear-headed. What you could do, for example, is just rub two fingers together. Your forefinger and your thumb. Rub them together and feel the ridges on there. That will help you to refocus. So this is what we want to do when we identify that our emotions are carrying us away. We're getting carried away and there's usually a physical reaction. Your heartbeat and your breathing may increase, you might sweat, or you may experience tenseness in certain parts of your body. We've all experienced that tightening of the jaw, haven't we, when we start getting tense and annoyed at something. And this is the body's natural response to stress, and there's nothing wrong with it. For you, it's a warning that you need to take a second to just refocus. At this point, there are several techniques you can use. I've already mentioned about rubbing the two fingers together. Take control of your breathing by breathing deeply. You can learn to relax your muscles, or you can do a visualization exercise where you picture something calm and relaxing. That might help too. There's even the traditional idea of counting to 10 when you feel angry or stressed. You can choose whichever technique that works for you. Choose something that you can do as soon as you recognize when you're starting to get emotional and you're running the risk of making some rash decisions. And every time it happens, take a moment to take a quick break and refocus on the problem at hand. That's the third thing. Now the fourth, empathy. It helps you in your professional, personal and life in many, many ways. It helps you better understand those around you and their perception of you. As a result of improving your empathy, you're going to get a better understanding of those parts of communication that are unspoken. You're going to know what's really going on behind the words, and this helps in your problem solving, motivating your team, conflict resolution, sales, and much, much more. There are many ways to improve your empathy skills, but the starting point is to improve your observational skills. Learn to be a skilled people watcher. I've got to say, this is one of my favourite things to do ever. First, as mentioned above, with active listening, you're going to have to eliminate those distractions so that you can give your full attention to others and hear what they're saying and doing. In general though, we're going beyond the simple statements and the words that people are saying. Those are pretty clear. This time we're going into things like body language and non-verbal cues. You're going to notice when these visual changes happen in someone. So they may change their posture, their breathing, their movements, or their facial expression. They may sweat or blush. Try to notice subtle changes like the narrowing of eyes or the downturn at the edges of a person's lips. You may also note changes in tone. Not only the words we say, but also the way we talk can reveal a lot about what's behind the words. Pay attention to the changes in pitch, volume, tempo, and tone of voice. And also we want to pay attention to the way people use the words they use to express themselves. Think about how many different ways there are that you can use to convey the emotion of anger. Hundreds. You might go from something really, really strong, like apoplectic, or you might come down all the way down to the bottom to something like slightly miffed. So there are many different ways to phrase any particular sentence, and the specific words that are used can tell you that there may be anger, resentment, enthusiasm, or any other emotion behind the words. It's up to you to pay attention. Sometimes a person can tell you a great deal not by the emotional cues but by the absence of emotion. Now that may express any number of different things: anger, disappointment, distraction, or resentment. Pay attention, especially when a person's usually effusive communication suddenly falls flat. As you develop your observational skills, you'll gain a better understanding of other people. You can then effectively put yourself in their shoes and figure out how to communicate with them in a much more appropriate way. Final tip then, and this is probably my favourite: maintain a positive outlook. Now, positive outlook isn't the kind of thing where you think it's going to be sunshine and unicorns all day, every day. This is something that, for me as a former project manager, you have to be positive and think that something is going to be good. You have to accept that there are going to be risks on the way, and you're going to try to manage those risks as you go in. So you're not foolishly positive. You're not ignoring things that are difficult or negative. Rather, you see the silver lining and face the challenges with a firm resolve, knowing that they may or may not succeed, but in either case you'll learn something. This is the kind of positive outlook that can handle any problem positively but realistically. And if you really want to hear about a positive outlook and the best way of doing that, look into something called the Stockdale Paradox. Really interesting story about a Vietnamese a prisoner of war in the Vietnam War. So a good way to make yourself authentically more positive is to identify negative self-talk and turn it positive. Reframe it. Negative self-talk refers to the voice in your head that turns a situation bad. These can include things like, this is going to be difficult. Oh, I did such a stupid thing today. This situation always ends up like, I'm sure my boss is going to give me trouble today. There's no way this will work. I'm rubbish at maths. You get all these kind of things. You've probably said very similar things to yourself in the past. It's a case of reframing them to make them that bit more positive. Now, it is, as it says here, a self-defense mechanism, and it's based on the past experience. Your mind sets you up for the worst, preparing you to accept things so that they're not a shock. The problem with this is that when things may not turn out badly as you expect them to, negative self-talk is stressful and can put you in a bad mood with no good effect whatsoever. So think positively. Think what's the good outcomes that are going to come for this. And when you do things, say things like what I've just mentioned, learn to recognise the voice and counter it by either shutting it up or replacing it with something positive. For example, this won't work. A positive alternative would be, we've never tried this before, but whether it works or not, we'll learn from it. If you're going into a meeting with an associate who's difficult to talk to, don't dwell on past experiences. Tell yourself that you're going to do everything you can to make the meeting go well. This can be quite a challenge, but learning how to turn negative self-talk around can have major benefits. The best way to approach a difficult situation is to be as prepared as possible and to have a positive attitude. These are just a few things you can do to improve and increase your emotional intelligence. Give them a try and they will definitely make a difference on how you react and respond to emotions. Now, if you want to learn more about how you can improve your emotional intelligence, go to the link at chativation.com and figure out how you can join our full course. And the full course is over 5 weeks and it will go into the 5 different pillars of emotional intelligence, and it will break them down bit by bit, and it will help you and guide you to be more emotionally intelligent as you're going through. I'm Chaz, this is chativation.com. Have a fantastic day, and hopefully I will see you soon on our emotional intelligence course.